slower. Namo Vishubhad Brahmans Brahmadacharya Asidhar Sidhushi Shiman is Divine Grace Lacey Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Glories to the Son of devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Granga. Om Vishnu Graya Krishna Prasthaya Buddha Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskajade Satarane. Om Agyanatiparandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Lalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Yadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagragatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Ridhana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Bhanu Siddhi Devi Pranamamri Priye Panchakapa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyabhacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, Text 25. Deya Savo Sha Manavo Bhuttamatram
Deyo Sarvosha Manavo Bhutamantra
Atmanamanyam Cha Vidu Paramya
Atmanamanyam Chavidu Paramya
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Satajyo
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Chatajno
Naveda Sarva Gyam Ananta Idya De
Naveda Sarvanyam Anantamide
Deho Savo Shamanavo Bhuttamatram
Deyo Savoksha Manavo Bhutamatram
Atmanamanyam Cha Vidu Paramya
Atmanamanyam Chavidu Paramya
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Satajyo
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Chatajno
Naveda Sarva Gyam Anantam Ide
Naveda Sarvanyam Anantamide
Devo Savoksamanavo Bhutamatram
Deyo Savoksha Manavo Bhutamatram
Atmanam Aliyam Savidu Paramyak
Atmanam Anyam Chavidu Paramya
Sarvam Puman Veda Punam Chatatyo
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Chatajno
Naveda Sarvakyam Anantamide
Naveda Sarvanyam Anantamide Deho Savoksha Manava Bhutamatram
Deho Savoksha Manavo Bhutamatram
Atmanamanyam Chavidu Paramya
Atmanam Aliyam Savidu Paramyak
Sarvam Bhuman Veda Gunam Chatajno
Sarvam Puman Veda Punam Satatyo
Na Veda Sarvam Yam Anantam Ide.
Naveda Sarvakyam Anantamite.
Ladies, Bhagatavam Atmanamanyam Shavidu Paramyat Sarvam Puman Veda Gunam Shatatyo Viveda Sarva Gyamanantide Deha, this body, Asava, the life heirs, Aksha, the different senses, Manava, the mind, understanding, intellect, and ego.
Understanding, intellect, and ego.
Buddha Matram, the five gross material elements, and the sense objects, form, taste, sound, and so on. Atmanam, themselves. Anyam, any other. Sha, and. Vidu, no. Param, beyond. Yat, that which. Sarvam, everything. Puman, the living being. Veda, knows. Gunan, the qualities of the material nature. Cha, and. Tatya, knowing these things. Na, not. Veda, knows. Sarvagyam, under the omniscient. Anantam, the unlimited. Ide, I offer respectful obeisances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Because they are only matter, the body, the life heirs, the external and internal senses, the five gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, cannot know their own nature, nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. The living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life heirs, the senses, the elements and the sense objects, and he can also know the three qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, is unable to see the Supreme Being who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Purport: material scientists can make an analytical study of the physical elements, the body, the senses, the sense objects, even the air that controls the vital force. But still they cannot understand that above all these is the real spirit soul. In other words, the living entity, because of his being a spirit soul, can understand all the material objects. Or when self-realized, he can understand the Paramatma, on whom yogis meditate. Nonetheless, the living being, even if advanced, cannot understand the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, for he is ananta, unlimited in all opulences. So the text again. Because they are only matter, the body, the life heirs, the external and internal senses, the five gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, cannot know their own nature, the nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. The living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life heirs, the senses, the elements, and the sense objects. And he can also know the three qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, he is unable to see the Supreme Being, who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimad Bhagatavam Swami Namaste. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Pasadyade Siddharane. Who we are. The purpose of the Vedic culture, specifically Varnashram Dharma, is to help us come to the platform realizing who we're not, namely this body. And it does it by progressively what's called dutiful activity under karma yoga, inquiry, utilizing our intelligence for inquisitiveness under jnana yoga, and finally surrender to Krishna, spiritual life, under bhakti yoga. Well, first there's Ashtanga yoga, which is meditation on the super soul, and then bhakti yoga, so loving service to Krishna, devotional service. So, in our process of bhakti yoga, simultaneously we're trying to do dutiful activities to Krishna, specifically. We're trying to understand Krishna, that's karma yoga and jnana yoga. We're trying to meditate upon Krishna, and we're trying to give our love to Krishna. While in the other systems, there's dutiful work, there's inquisitiveness, there's meditation, and then ultimately there's Krishna consciousness. So one's a direct process, the other one's an indirect process. Either way, one will come to the platform, one is supposed to come to the platform of reviving our relation with Krishna. But in the indirect process, there are different levels of realization apart from Krishna, seemingly apart from Krishna. It's like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvamanasa, Sarvabhuta, Sarvamanasa, Sarva. What is that? We have a Bhagavad Gita. Sarvamanasa, Sarvamanasi. Sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaste sukhamvasi navadvare paredehi naiva korvam nakarya. The embodied soul master the city of his body. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all activities, he lives happily in the city of 9 gates, neither working nor causing work to be done. In other words, we're spiritual beings, and therefore we actually have nothing to do with matter, except that we're aware of it, because that's natural. To be aware of something and not actually be that thing. So material life is just like watching a movie. And the hero in that life is called our body. Just like I've said before, we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror and we ask the mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest of them all? And we see our material body in the mirror as our worshipful deity. And we become convinced that actually today I should try to render unalloyed, uninterrupted service to that deity in the mirror. My most worshipful object of attention, love. And then if we're a little pious, we take a shower in the name of Abhishek to the deity. Then we clothe the deity, we dress the deity, we decorate the deity. And we offer the deity 5 kinds of foodstuffs. And being empowered, then we go out into the world to spread the glories of the deity all over the world. We call that Sankirtan. Trying to get devotees to surrender. So, actually, all we're doing is gross and subtle, that's appreciating what it does. Everyone else may not be very much appreciative of how this body smells, but we love it so much that in all circumstances, we even like how it smells. Even if it's not so pleasant to others, it's always pleasant to us. How it looks, how it talks, everything. Because by nature, we're deity worshippers. We have to worship a deity. So this is our deity. But Bhagavad Gita gives us a path of realization, and that realization is explained. The vision, how to see things properly. Naiva kinchit karomi ti, yukta manite tatavik, pashan srinvan srishan jigran ashnanga chan svapan svasan, valapan dushijandrinani mushani mushanapi, indriyan yarte shuvartanta ididarya. That the invited soul, a person in divine consciousness, to engage in seeing and hearing and smelling, while breathing, always knows that only his material senses are engaged with their objects, because while talking and evacuating and receiving and opening and closing his eyes, he knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he's aloof from them. So that's a level of Brahman realization. That Brahman realization can be there by giving up hankering and lamentation, because that's what clouds our consciousness to begin with. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Vishoshiti Nakanshiti. Our mind is cloudy because of our attachment to this body and things in relation to this body. And because we hanker to provide everything necessary for the body, we're desirous of obtaining things that will satisfy the body, either grossly or subtly. And because we're lamenting, we can never quite satisfy the body. It doesn't matter how much service we give the body, it's never satisfied. Like today's a half-day fast, so the body doesn't appreciate that usually. It's not that. If we say today's a half-day fast, it'll try. Fantastic. Make it 3 days. We think of only 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, then I can take prasadam and I'll be happy. But we have to take prasadam, we're still not happy. We look forward to the next meal. And we lament that maybe I ate too much. Maybe I have to fast tomorrow too. So material life means 2 things: hankering for what we don't have and lamenting what happened to us. And on that basis, we make friends and enemies. Those who will help us in our conquest of material energy, those who supply us with the material body demands or needs, either food or water or shelter or whatever else we may think we need. And then, of course, to satisfy our false ego, we need a little profit, a little adoration, and a little distinction to just add a little spice to our life. So actually, ultimately, every conditioned soul is a servant to the false ego and all the different manifestations that it provides us. And what is that false ego? Pumsa Sriya Maituni Bhavange Tang Triya Pranti Mahu Atogriya Kshetra Sutapta Vitera Janasya Moho Yam Aham Maveti. It's this conception that I am the male and this is the female. I am the enjoyer and I'm enjoying. That's material life. And because of that, there is the heart becomes covered with material desires and lamentations and different reactions, different relationships with different people, and therefore on that basis we get land and family and so many other paraphernalia, and that knot gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and we forget who we actually are. So many duties, so many things to do. Duties to liberate the soul. But one who sees himself as a spiritual being and sees his body as what we're observing, then you can make the decision, I want to utilize the body in Krishna's service. We don't exactly move the body, but we simply desire that let me do something for Krishna. Let me follow Krishna's instructions. Let me understand Krishna. Just like to come to the class here, we had to move our body here. For most of us, unless it's being broadcast on the internet. So people still, they have to turn on the internet. So it requires some physical activity, and then it requires us utilizing our intelligence, our determination to hear what's being said. So there's a gross aspect of cultivation of Krishna consciousness. We have to at least voluntarily follow the principles of sadhana bhakti, and at the same time try to pay attention to what's being said, try to feed our intellect so that we can see things clearer. Shruti Kirti Prabhu used to say that because he was massaging Srila Prabhupada at night, sometimes he'd be so tired in the morning, but still he was supposed to attend class. So he'd bring his body there, and he learned the technique to keep his eyes open during class. So though he was asleep, he'd appear to be awake. So we can come to class somewhere or another, and we may appear to be awake even, or we may reveal our fact that we're in meditation or in trance. But that doesn't mean we're paying any attention. We're not really necessarily feeding our intelligence. Just like a little child, you try to feed them, you go, here's the airplane, and you get their attention. You try to feed them, and they immediately close their mouth before you can actually put the food in. So hearing about Krishna is feeding our intelligence so we can see things, because our intelligence illuminates, and then we can see. Unless we turn the light on with our intelligence, we can't see with our eyes. So hearing is meant to turn on the light, if we allow the light to come in, so we can see through our eyes what's actually going on. So those who can see things with their intelligence can see that we're all eternal, transcendental, beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body or Arjuna, the soul is neither entangled nor is he doing anything. We're just observing. Since time immemorial, we've just been going through one body to another, observing our attempt to become either Radha or Krishna, either Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse, either Romeo or Juliet, either Tarzan or Jane. But since time immemorial, we've been trying to become the Supremes. Unsuccessfully, because here we are now. Most of us are not princes or princesses. We're just struggling devotees, which proves we haven't made a complete success or attempts to become God. And we're even making some attempt to become God's devotee now. However more painful or joyful that may be, depends upon our willingness to accept that position. So that's simply the beginning of spiritual life. And here it mentions that even when we come to the platform, I can understand I'm not this body. Still, it's not very much interesting, really, to find out what I'm not. Even I can merge in Brahman, and there's no more worries in Brahman about dying, because one realizes one's eternal. But there's not much more going on there. And although one may stay there for billions or trillions of years, still one will get bored after some time and want to have something more exciting. Like, for instance, we may watch television, well, we may not do anything. And then one day we decide to, we're getting bored, we turn on the television to find out something interesting going on. So we may restrain from our material activities, but after some time, we'll become attracted again to turn on our illusion and see what we can enjoy in the material world, however small it might be. On the other hand, if one actually becomes Krishna conscious, then it is life back again. In other words, by the process of devotional service, if we take it seriously, Krishna will reveal himself to us and we can experience a little bit of Krishna consciousness. And that will attract us to make further progress. That there is something higher than simply materialistic life. Just like there are 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Is anyone taking Bhakti Shastri here? So, of course, did you pass the test? Did you pass the Bhakti Shastri test?
I didn't yet do it. I have a study, but no test.
Oh, okay. Did you pass the test? So you took the Nectar Devotion course? So you must remember there are 6 qualities of devotional service. You remember them?
I think so.
What's the first 2 in sadhana bhakti? That's 1.
Shubhada
That's 2. What does that mean?
means auspiciousness.
Kleshagni.
No, Kleshagni is the eradication of the suffering.
Suffering, right? And Shubhada?
Means when the suffering is eradicated, then we actually can develop good qualities.
Yeah, good qualities. And 2 in Bhava Bhakti?
Then there is Sudurlabha.
Oh, we see. Who else took Bhakti Shastri? Did anyone else take the Bhakti Shastri test? Okay. Sudurlabha.
Rarely achieved.
What's that?
Rarely achieved.
Rarely achieved.
Mokshala Guptakrit.
Which is?
Which is the happiness that is much greater than the happiness of liberation.
And then?
And then is Sandharananda Visheshatma. That is, and there is happiness that is so condensed. And then it's Mokshala Gupta. No, sorry, then it's the Krishna Karshnita, which means that controls Krishna.
Yeah, so it attracts Krishna. Karshnimi. So these are qualities of devotional service, and when we, even at the state of sadhana bhakti, which goes all the way up to Vasakti, then one feels relief from material misery. And at the same time, one's natural good qualities start manifesting itself. And it gives a happiness, at least at the stage after Ruchi and Asakti, which is greater than any kind of material sense gratification or happiness that's possible. Therefore, it's considered the stage of liberation after Nishta. So that's what we're trying to do, is at least act on a platform of Nishta. We may not be on Nishta, or we may not be on the platform of liberation, but we act on the platform of liberation. And how's that platform of liberation? As I explained yesterday, we try to love Krishna. For that reason, we have the deities, and we think, oh, the deities look very nice. We appreciate the deities. They look happy, joyful, beautiful, whatever else. That's the kind of love. That's the beginning of love, is appreciation. Appreciation of this philosophy, appreciation of the holy name, appreciation of the devotees, appreciation of the spiritual atmosphere that's created in the temple. That anyone comes to the temple and they just feel good because they're in the temple, that's a kind of appreciation. That's an element that's the beginning of their faith, and they're taking Krishna, entering into the realm of Krishna consciousness. They may not come into the temple and fall on the floor and roll around, but just a little bit of feeling that this is a nice place is a great advancement for someone. Or a little bit of appreciation of the devotees. They look happy, just like in Bhakti Shushan. what attracts people to the book is not our expert explanation of the philosophy that people realize on the street, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, and therefore they want to buy the book. No, it's that when they see the devotees are enthusiastic, they think, well, maybe I'd like a little of that enthusiasm, and maybe the book will help me get it. So that's what attracts a little bit of Krishna consciousness. If they see the deities, well, the deities are attractive, Krishna are non-different, and therefore they appreciation for Krishna. So that's greater, actually, than any material happiness, because any material happiness, although it may be more intense than simply appreciating the deities, but appreciation of the deities will grow, while any material experience will simply be very temporary. Yehi samsparsha bhoga dukkha yone evate idantavanta kontiya nate shuramate buddha. An intelligent person doesn't take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the senses, with their objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and end, and so the wise person doesn't delight in them. In other words, one has to eat in this material world, one has to sleep, one may have sex life or defend oneself, but one should not become attached to these things by themselves. One should do them on behalf of Krishna. And one does them on behalf of Krishna, then although they're temporary, Krishna is eternal, and therefore the happiness will not be, of Krishna consciousness will not be impeded by any kind of material activity. One may perform them, but if one performs them in Krishna consciousness, one will not become attached to them, so that one will forget Krishna and the cause of living a material existence. And then the happiness from Krishna consciousness will be such that one will gradually not become, one can diminish these activities in the course of time. Just like married life is there, but if married life is performed in Krishna consciousness, then one will see, one has the best possible married life, what they call a happy family with happy children, happy wife and husband, nice, comfortable house. One has the best possible materialistic household life. At the same time, one is Krishna conscious. Then one will see that in comparison to Krishna consciousness, the best possible family life is not very important. That I could actually have the whole world as my family. Because if one develops love for Krishna, one will naturally develop love for one's wife and children and all the paraphernalia in relation to Krishna. And then one will see one can have the whole world as one's family. So that has to be developed by cultivation of Krishna consciousness, even in family life or in any life, any kind of life. But if one is imagining what material life could be like, if I had this or if I had that, or this happened or that happened, then one will always be dissatisfied. Because just the desire to have these things is dissatisfaction. And if one gets these things and one is unhappy about them, if one is lamenting, oh, I worked so hard to get this wife or this husband or this house or this car, and it's such a burden, and laments, then one will simply suffer, that's all. And one will think, well, actually, I got the wrong house, I got the wrong car, I got the wrong wife, I got the wrong husband, I got the wrong children. It's the other ones that I need. That will make me happy. And that will bring one to the next body to do the same thing over and over again. So in any case, if one adds Krishna to whatever house or wife or husband or children or whatever one's situation one is in, one adds Krishna, then one will become pacified. That it doesn't really matter, that actually if I develop Krishna consciousness, I'll have a nice relationship with all living entities. I'll be satisfied under all circumstances. And that Krishna consciousness will not be, there won't be anything that will be an obstacle to my developing my Krishna consciousness. If I just accept my real position, who I actually am. It's not that if I become Krishna conscious, then I get a new position. We're just realizing who we actually are, instead of who we think we are. who we think others are. Then everything becomes clear when we realize simultaneously how Krishna is in my heart, directing me, is my friend. If I ask him a question, he'll actually give me the answer. He may not tell me who's going to win the next horse race, because he knows that's not going to be, he might tell me that if I really want to do that, but then I have to become qualified to actually get that kind of information from the super soul. It's not so easy to get. Who's going to win the next horse race? That would be possible through great austerity and penance, etc., and praise to Krishna, and gets the proper direction, how to come in contact with the super soul, to develop such what they call a mystic power, which is only a matter of coming in contact with Krishna. But that may take many lifetimes, and by the time we get that power in Kali Yuga, there won't be any horses left. They probably ate all the horses by that time. Therefore, one should try to come in contact with Krishna through devotional service, and he'll give intelligence only to his devotees, only intelligence how to become more steady and enthusiastic in devotional service. That's the intelligence he gives to his devotee. As a reward for the devotee's sincere endeavor to get that intelligence. And then if one utilizes that intelligence, then Krishna will gradually see the sincerity, the steadiness of the devotee, and therefore reward him, reveal himself personally to that devotee in the form of the holy name, in the form of the deities, in the form of these books, the form of one's service to the devotees, the form of the spiritual atmosphere that's created either by preaching or in the temple by service. The Krishna will manifest himself in different ways through a devotee who sincerely wants to serve him in that way. And then one will understand things as they are through devotional service, everything will be revealed. Jnanena tutalaganam yeshanashitam atmanaha tesham adityavar jnanam prakashiti tatparam. One, however, was united, one, however, one is illuminated. There must be another word there. When, however, one is enlightened by the nescience, but when, however, one is enlightened by the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So if we try to focus our attention, give our love to Krishna, especially in those 5 powerful processes, then everything else will be revealed to us. So we should take those 5 processes as something significant and try to apply our minds to them, especially when we're doing them. Put aside all the worries that we have about the past, present, future, and just try to concentrate on hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna. And then, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, he forget about the past that sleeps, or to the future dream, and live in times that are the now in progress, we will call progressing. Live in times in Krishna consciousness, and then progress will be there. If you fall asleep while you're standing up, you might fall down. That happened one time. I had one disciple, he didn't get enough sleep. So one time he jumped up during kirtan, he fell asleep in the air. And he fell down. He actually broke some of his teeth. So we should get enough sleep. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Is there any, can you enlighten me, is there any, when we are trying to do spiritual advancement, is there, there is, but what is the basic mistakes what we neophyte devotees are doing when we are trying?
Nectar of Devotion, text number 3.
Yeah.
Yes. Nectar of Instruction, I should say. Atyahara priyasascha prajalpa niyamagraha jana sangasaloyam cha shadvir bhakti vinashiti. Atyahara priyasischa prajalpa niyamagraha jnana sangasaloyam cha shadvirvak nachiti. Atyahara, eating too much of anything. Looking at things, material things, or eating material things, food, or collecting like that. Too much eating through our senses, listening to music, non-devotional music. It's also kind of food for the senses. Too much of it. That leads to prayasa, atyahara priyasas. We have to get, and then in order to do that, you have to talk nonsense to people. Because if you try to talk Krishna consciousness, they're not going to give you these things. So that's called prajalpa. Going to business to acquire whatever we need for ourselves and our family. It's supply the food to the senses. Too much of it. And then niyamagraha. Then even when we're performing devotional service, we won't have time to find out why we're doing it. Or we won't do it. And therefore, as we get more and more absorbed in material life, we get more and more attracted to those heroes that we have who are enjoying their senses more than we are. And then we become greedy to become like them. And our devotional service slackens or disappears after some time. So the main problem is we feed our senses with things which are not Krishna conscious, and we become, everything else follows after that. That means mentally also, our mind starts dwelling us down memory lane and we become attracted to it. Think about all the happy times I had when I was gratifying my senses before I became a devotee. And then we develop this desire, which is even more strong. We gratify the senses. Anything else? Yes.
Also, is not doing enough positive things in Krishna consciousness, like not really
Supposedly, 24 hours a day, we're supposed to engage in processes. So anything less than that is not enough. Although we're not about to, it'll be rare we have a perfect day where we only remember Krishna and never forgotten it. But we have to practice. Therefore, we have sadhana bhakti. So at least during certain times, we engage in those activities. And then, of course, we regulate our activities during the day in service, and we have more of an opportunity to remember how that we should also do those activities in Krishna consciousness.
Somehow I felt that in my experience in Krishna consciousness that there is not enough studying, reading or studying even more. And I'm not sure if this is, in my experience, as I say, that this is maybe the reason why devotees don't go so seriously, maybe too superficial in the devotional service, even though they may engage the senses, but because they have not really understood, or we have not really understood. So therefore we slack and eventually water down our Krishna consciousness and maybe leave eventually. So what I'm trying to say is that not enough studying.
Studying is the beginning. Hearing is the beginning. It's not sufficient because we can study, but we may not hear very much because the philosophy ultimately is very simple. Krishna is God and we're not. So that's very difficult to accept. So we keep on studying and studying. We learn so many things, so we think we're making advancement. The basic thing is that we don't accept that Krishna is God and we're not. Matter of fact, if we study too much, then the result is we become proud, think I know something, which I don't know. Actually, the more I study, the more proud I get, the less I actually know. I get further away from the truth. Therefore, I have so much so-called knowledge, but I have very little realization of who I actually am. I think my intellect. I think I'm accumulated of so many different verses and slokas and information, and I become proud. So therefore, we should not only study, we should assimilate the knowledge to understand what it's telling me I'm supposed to be doing. And what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to develop conviction, faith, how to serve Krishna, how to serve his devotees, how to serve the innocent, and how to properly deal with those who are against Krishna. To actually develop a loving attitude towards everyone. So if I'm a great intellect and I like to fight with everyone to show how powerful my intellect is, then I miss the whole point. Instead of loving devotees and serving them, I'm fighting with them with all this knowledge I have. Therefore, if I become humble, which is love and humility go together, actually real knowledge and humility go together. Without humility, there is no progress in any kind of knowledge. Real knowledge. Humility is the basis. That I'm 1/10,000th the size of tip hair in size. I'm completely dependent on Krishna and his representatives. I have no independent existence outside of my relationship to Krishna. And I'm very tiny and he's very great. As soon as I forget that, as soon as I lose that humility, then everything else is lost. And of course, if I develop my intellect by studying, eventually, and I become proud about it, then I'll get into fights, and by those fighting, I'll develop material desires, and by those offenses, those material desires, I'll lose my intellect. So it's a self-controlling. But on the other hand, if I assimilate the knowledge, I realize I'm a tiny insignificant soul. Trinadapi Sanichena Turivasi Vishnu. If I study that verse, I get to know that very well. Humbler than the straw in the street, or taller than the tree, etc. They offer all respect to others, not desire the respect of others. That's the beginning of learning. And the result is that without conviction, I can engage in loving exchanges with the devotees, with other living entities appropriately, and then I'll always be able to remember Krishna and never forget him. Because I'm in the spiritual world with Krishna and his devotees, on the spiritual platform of consciousness, I'll develop all the good qualities of pure devotee. I'll develop the character of a pure devotee. And therefore, that will be the perfection of my life. In any circumstance. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj, for the lecture. My wife would like to ask that how, when you study a lot, you might become tired, and then you need to take rest and relax and let the brain rest. So how to do that without making offenses? How to relax in a Krishna conscious way?
Well, if you study enough, then you'll dream about Krishna. That's all right. You get credit for dreaming about Krishna too. That's also devotional service. But even if you don't dream about Krishna, I mean, the body is Krishna's and it has to be taken care of. We're simply the passenger. So we regulate as Krishna says, Atyahara Prayasascha Pridalpani. Natyashnatas to yogosti, natai kantam natashnata, chaiti swapnashilasya jagato nagacharjana, yuktahara viharasya, yuktachetas karmasu, yuktaswapnanuvodasya, yoga bhavati dukkha. The devotee doesn't eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. When it was temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, work, and recreation, can mitigate all material pains by practice of the yoga system. So sleeping is necessary, just like eating is necessary, but we just regulate it. It's not that if we don't eat too much excessively, then we won't have to sleep too much. If we don't sleep too much, then we can regulate our other habits too. So we get whatever required now for the body we have, we take that much sleep. We don't try to increase it dramatically or decrease it dramatically. We just let the body, and then if we want to decrease it in the course of time, we do it very gradually, going to what's actually comfortable. We're not fighting, the body's not our enemy. It's our vehicle for serving Krishna. So we don't look at it as an enemy. We try to torture it. And we try to take care of it. Just like if the car is not, if we're using it in Krishna service, it's not our enemy. It's a vehicle that we utilize for Krishna. So we put the gasoline in, we clean it, we maintain it, we do everything else necessary. Because we try to utilize it to the end. So we try to see the body as Krishna's body, and eating, sleeping, perhaps sometimes mating and defending is necessary. So therefore we do what's necessary in Krishna consciousness.
What about like recreation? Like when you're not sleeping, but you like recreational time when being awake. How do you perform that in a Krishna conscious way?
Well, if you're advanced enough, we dance. We dance in kirtan. If you really want to watch something recreational, you can see movies of Prabhupada, memories of Prabhupada. Prabhupada said swimming and wrestling are two Vaishnava sports. So you can go swimming, or you can, whatever. Wrestling may be a little bit more dangerous. There's something to do. Because, it's considered to be a waste of time doing other things, because it's very difficult to remember Krishna when you're engaging contact football or something. But something walking, whatever. But those things, they're not sinful if you're playing soccer. It's just it's hard to see the soccer ball as the deity. Besides that, you're not supposed to kick the deity. But other ways of physical exercises are there, especially dancing or walking, whatever. Anything else? Yes.
Can I comment something?
Yeah.
About your point that studying too much, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, he was lamenting to the devotees in Russia and Soviet Union because he was providing so many seminars to the devotees, and he said that devotees, they know all the reasons why they should perform devotional service, but they become so knowledgeable, so they know all the reasons why they should not perform devotional service. So he just studied what he said, that Paya gave so many seminars, but devotees still not active.
Well, I don't think you have to give a seminar for people to figure out why they don't do devotional service. I know that's usually not included in the seminars, all the reasons why you shouldn't do devotional service. But we already know all those reasons. And if we don't know, the senses and mind will remind us. Yes?
You mentioned like Ashtanga yoga and meditation should lead into Bhakti yoga. So how would you recommend for somebody who is interested in meditation but has not yet become interested in Bhakti yoga, how to try to get them interested into Bhakti yoga from the Ashtanga yoga platform?
Well, our meditation is the chanting of the holy names. Give them to chant japa. We find it's a lot easier to try to focus on the holy name than on a candle. It's a little bit more interesting. In any case, meditation, the actual process of entering into meditation in Krishna consciousness is to hear first. Hear how everything belongs to Krishna and should be utilized in Krishna's service. Because what takes our intelligence away, and therefore our mind becomes unsteady when we don't have spiritual intelligence, is the fact that we're interested in enjoying the material nature. Lust, from lust comes greed, from greed comes frustration, from frustration comes illusion. an illusion comes, and we forget who we actually are. We forget reality, and therefore our intelligence gets lost. And therefore we wind up doing things which are actually distracting. It's to our minds, to agitate our minds. On the other hand, if we understand by hearing everything is Krishna's, and therefore respect everything as being part of Krishna, and learn how to utilize it in Krishna's loving service, then everything becomes spiritualized. And when everything becomes spiritualized, then I can get the room, and if I desire to please Krishna, and Krishna reveals himself, then Krishna is so beautiful and wonderful, and he's the reservoir of pleasure. I've become filled with more and more pleasure, and therefore my mind becomes fixed more and more on Krishna. That's called meditation. And Prabhupada gives different ways of, or in Bhagavad Gita, different ways of seeing that. Beginning, when he's religious, he follows religious principles. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. Those are the 4 religious principles. And then one becomes interested in acting goodness, because we have to act. One becomes interested in following the laws of material nature, when he's regulating his activities, he eats the proper food, he sleeps the proper amount, he appreciates fresh air, fresh food, clean water, nice relationships with people. He comes to trying to enter into the higher modes of nature, and then one becomes inquisitive, so that one is able to tolerate the disturbances of the mind. And then one actually accepts devotional service, understand, and then Krishna reveals himself, and then one becomes so much in love with Krishna that one meditates in trance eternally on Krishna and one's relation with Krishna. So we practice, whatever state, whatever position we're on, we practice, and then we go, by that practice, we get a little higher. We may not always be able to tolerate the urges of the senses, tolerate the urges of our mind, the disturbances of our mind, but we learn gradually. And when we come to that platform, when we're liberated, then we can hear very well. And then we can actually accept real devotional service, who I actually am as Krishna's servant. And then we can understand Krishna in truth, and then meditate upon him. So it's a gradual process. But we shouldn't make it too gradual. So at the end of Kali Yuga, we're still here, and we say, "Oh, it was a gradual process." Anything else? Thank you, Brent. Actually, it's key dose. Brother Srimad Bhagatavam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.